Okay, welcome to this hearing of Subcommittee A of the Birmingham Licensing and Public Protection Committee. I'm Councillor Philip Davis. I'll be chairing the hearing today. Before we start, could everybody mute their microphones so that we can improve the sound quality? And committee members will have the camera switched on throughout the hearing, but everybody else, please, if you keep yours off unless you're speaking. Obviously, we will have our mobile phones on silent, etc., to avoid distractions. And it's important for obvious reasons that those attending the meeting and making representations are able to hear me and members of the subcommittee and officers clearly. Any distractions could result in the meeting being suspended temporarily or to another date and time under the regulations for these types of meetings. This is a public meeting and is therefore being live streamed on the City Council's website in order that the general public can view it. The formal items of business are: 1, notice of recording webcast. I advise the meeting to note that this meeting will be webcast for live or subsequent broadcast by the Council's meeting YouTube site, and that members of the press public may record and take photographs except where there are confidential linked items. Secondly, declarations of interest. Members are reminded they must declare all relevant pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests arising from the business to be discussed at this meeting. If a disclosable pecuniary interest is declared, a member must not speak or take part in that agenda item. Any declarations will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. 3, apologies and notification from any members. No apologies were submitted. So can I welcome you to the main business of today's meeting, which is a hearing for an application in respect of AK Supermarket, 868 Washford Heath, Birmingham, B8, 2NG. As I said, I'm Councillor Philip Davis, chairing the meeting of Subcommittee A today. With me are other members of the Subcommittee, Councillors Martin Straker-Welds and Bob Beecham. Also present in the meeting are the following officers: the licensing officer, Mr. Shahid Yasser, the committee manager, Katie Townsend, and the committee lawyer, Geraldine Swampilai. So, in terms of the parties attending today, I have Mr. Rob Edge representing Mr. Jahangir Hussain, the licence holder. Mr. Edge, can you confirm you can hear me, you're here?
I can, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And next, those making representations, which is West Midlands Police. I think Mr. Mark Swallow, you are here as well.
Yes, Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you. Is it Mr. or is it Pete, or are you an officer? I can't remember, sorry, I'll just clarify that.
No, I was an officer, I was a sergeant, but now I'm a civilian. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Swallow. Next question is, could I ask if any persons making representations wish to withdraw their representations at this stage of the hearing? I think that's mainly addressed to you, Mr. Swallow.
No, Chair, West Midlands Police do not wish to withdraw their objection. Okay,
I will assume all parties have read and understood the licensing committee procedural rules which have been sent out with today's hearing. I may at my discretion amend those rules given the nature of this hearing is online, but no amendments will impact on the parties' right to their hearing. We use the chat function, as you know, and if everybody could now confirm they've got access to that by just typing in their name, that will also help the record of the meeting. So I'm typing in my own details, and then we can proceed after that. Okay. So thank you very much for that, and we'll keep the chat column open in the usual way. Don't think we've got anybody dialed in on audio, telephone, and again, if you could keep the cameras off unless you're the person speaking, that will help any issues with bandwidth and general communication. Okay, we're on to preliminary points now. Does anyone wish to make a preliminary point at this stage? Mr. Edge?
No, Chair, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Swallow?
No, Chair, thank you very much.
Okay. So, as you know, gentlemen, the procedure is firstly the licensing officer, Mr. Yasser, will present his report. Then the applicant, that's Mr. Edge, will be invited to present make his statement. Then those making representations, West Midlands Police, will be invited, and we allow approximately 20 minutes per presentation in those cases. And again, I think generally you know about the live stream process and speaking clearly and the rest of that, so I won't labour that point. But if it's somebody else's turn to speak, please mute your microphone, as that will help the bandwidth process. And chat is there as a backup if there's any communications problem. Members of the subcommittee will be able to ask questions at any stage, but we'll try to do it so at the conclusion of each presentation. As you know, we don't allow cross-examination. Where questions are raised by members of the subcommittee or for those present, they can indicate verbally to me. If there's any communications problem, we'll try and use the chat function, and officers will alert me to any matters in the chat. If there's at any point you can't hear the process, if you have some communication difficulty, please indicate in the chat or try and attract our attention in some other way, and we'll pause the proceedings until we can rectify the technical issues. It may be necessary for the committee to take legal advice. At my discretion, I may ask all parties to wait in the meeting while members and the relevant officers withdraw to take legal advice using a separate meeting within Microsoft Teams. We'll then return to this meeting and continue. As indicated, if we have problems with the live stream, as this is a publicly broadcast meeting, again, I'll ask everybody to mute their microphones and stop speaking until the live stream is restored. And then again, if we go into private session, the meeting manager will pause the live stream, and then once that's over, we'll resume the live stream for public broadcast. At the conclusion of the hearing, I'll invite all parties to make a brief closing submission. No decision will be taken until all the evidence has been heard. And then at decision-making stage, the members and the relevant officers will withdraw in order to determine the decision. We go into a separate Microsoft Teams meeting. In the event that members need to clarify any point, you'll be telephoned by the meeting manager. The members will then make their decision, and you'll be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within 5 working days. I am aware of some developments in terms of how those participating want to respond today, but I'll now move on to ask Mr. Shahid Yasser, the licensing officer, to present his report. Mr. Yasser.
Thank you very much, Chair. So Mr. Jangir Hussain applied on the 14th of February 2022 to vary the premises license to specify himself as the designated premises supervisor in respect of AK Supermarket 868 Washwood Heath Road, Birmingham, B8 2NG. Councillors, the purpose of the report before you today is to consider the relevant notice that has been made in respect of an application to vary the premises license to specify an individual as the designated premises supervisor. The application requests that the change of DPS is to have immediate effect under Section 38 of the Licensing Act 2003. Consequently, the change in the DPS has immediate effect as soon as the application is made. In this case, however, a notice has been received from West Midlands Police objecting to the DPS change, and this is attached to Appendix 1 of your report. The DPS application is attached to Appendix 2 of your report, and the current premises license is attached to Appendix 3 of your report. Now, when holding a hearing to consider an objection notice under Section 39, subsection 3, a licensing authority must have regard to the notice and either reject the application if it considers it appropriate for the promotion of the prevention of crime and disorder licensing objective in the Licensing Act. Chair, we have had notification this morning from the licence holder's agent, Mr. Robert Edge, that he wishes to surrender the licence with immediate effect. We will, however, proceed with the hearing as the licence could be reinstated within 28 days. Therefore, the options which are available to you today are to grant the application to change the DPS or to refuse the application to change the DPS. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yasser. Now I'll move to Mr. Edge to make his comments as he wishes. Mr. Edge.
Thank you, Chair. As Mr. Yasser said, the premises licence holder has instructed me this morning to surrender the premises licence. He apologises that he's unable to be here today as he has to run the shop and states that business is struggling and he couldn't afford to have staff there. He apologises for the errors that took place at the store. He says that he took his eye off things and that they obviously went very badly wrong. He's a good person who simply didn't have enough due diligence, but now fully understands the implications of not getting things right. I think the point as well is that these errors were not malicious. He didn't sell to somebody underage, or he didn't operate outside of the licensing hours. However, it was noted by the police that such things as the Licensing Act pack, which was issued for the premises, wasn't being fully utilised. I don't think I really need to say anything else unless Mr. Swallow or yourselves had any questions, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, do we have any questions? I think the position is slightly different to the usual. Mr. Robbs from Mr. Edge's comments, but do you have any questions, Councillor Straker-Wells? No? Councillor Beecham?
No, thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. So no questions from us, Mr. Edge. Thank you for that. So I'll move on to West Midlands, please, Mr. Swallow.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Obviously, that latest development regarding surrender of the licence, I've only been made aware of that within the last 10 minutes. So obviously wasn't aware of that up until this point in time. In relation to this application, West Midlands Police are in receipt of an application for Mr. Jahangir Hussain, born the 5th of October 1974, of 249 Charles Road, Small Heath, to become the designated premises supervisor for AK Supermarket, which is 868 Washwood Heath Road, Birmingham, B8 2NG, and the licence number is number 5452. West Midlands Police would wish to object to this application under the Prevention of Crime and Disorder licensing objective, although there were also breaches of all the other licensing objectives. Since the licence was granted, there have been numerous systematic breaches of the premises licence, which has resulted in the premises now being subject of a review process. West Midlands Police have no confidence in the applicant that he will promote the licensing objectives, as he has shown his total inability to do so up until this point. There are clear risks with a premises licence holder and a designated premises supervisor being one person, and there are no checks and balances within that system, and this applicant has shown that they're totally unsuitable to have control of premises licensed to sell alcohol. So on the 19th of January 2022, West Midlands Police became aware of a complaint made by a member of the public that AK Supermarket had been alleged to have sold alcohol and single cigarettes to a minor. So inquiries were made into the premises, and it was discovered there was no designated premises supervisor listed for the premises. That was confirmed by Birmingham City Council, who stated that the original application had stated that the proposed person for this role was undergoing training. Since that time, no DPS has been nominated for the premises. A test purchase was undertaken by the enforcement section of the local authority, and a bottle of wine was purchased from the premises. As a result of this, on Thursday, the 10th of February 2022, personnel from both the police and the local authority attended the premises. In the shops, there was spirit, wine and beer displayed for sale on the left wall of the shop as you entered, and beers in a cooler on the right wall of the shop. There was one member of staff working there, a Mohammed Malik. The premises for the the premises licence holder for the premises, Jahangir Hussain, was contacted and attended the premises with a friend a short time later. He confirmed eventually that there was no designated premises supervisor for the premises. He couldn't produce any staff training records, but said he had told Malik what to do. He couldn't produce the refusals log for the premises, stating that it was at home. He was questioned regarding the CCTV system, and via his friend stated that the CCTV was on a recording loop of 7 days and then recorded over, not the 31 days specified in the operating conditions of the premises licence. He also stated that the short form of the premises licence, which was not on display in the shop, was also at home. There was no notice in the shop requesting that customers respect the neighbours of the premises. When asked about pre-opening checks for the premises, he didn't seem to understand what that meant. Those issues were pointed out to Hussain. It was explained to him that he couldn't sell alcohol whilst there was no designated premises supervisor for the premises. Most of the alcohol was removed to the shelves and some was covered up. He stated the alcohol would be removed from the shelves the following morning and he would shut the shop for that night. There was no alcohol in the storeroom of the premises. Aside from there being no DPS to the premises and alcohol being sold, alcohol and single cigarettes have been alleged to have been sold to children, and each of the operating conditions stated on the licence have been breached on the day of the police and local authority visit. It would seem that these breaches would have been taking place since the licence was issued. That was on the 2nd of December 2021. West Midlands Police have no confidence in the premises licence holder and proposed designated premises supervisor being able to promote the licensing objectives or abide by the conditions of his licence, as he has shown no regard to these during his stewardship of these premises. In fact, he's shown he's completely unable or unwilling to abide by any duties placed upon him by the Licensing Act 2003. It's believed he will continue to operate in this manner. As I said, that there are dangers in the premises supervisor and designated premises supervisor being the same person. These dangers, I believe, manifest themselves in this situation. Also, the applicant, when I was at the premises, suggested he would get a relative to be the DPS for the premises. That would have been bad enough in that he would still have the major stewardship of those premises. However, obviously, it now being himself, that is the worst case scenario for these premises. In relation to the allegation around the sale of alcohol and cigarettes to a minor, obviously I have to advise you to give some scepticism to that. It is an allegation, it's not proven, but I would suggest the weight of the other evidence in relation to what I've presented to you today in relation to complete disregard to the operating conditions does add weight to the veracity of that allegation. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you very much, Mr. Swallow. I'll just go to members for questions. Councillor Beecham, any questions?
Not from me, thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Councillor Straker-Wells?
No questions from me, Chair.
Okay. None from me either. So we're actually now at closing submissions. And did you want to say anything further by way of summary, Mr. Swallow?
Yes, thank you, councillor. What I'd like to say is in relation to the application, it has been shown that the applicant hasn't followed the law or promoted the licence in the objectives. Nothing has changed in relation to the shop since the day of the visit, so that situation is still in place. I've pointed out the danger of a single person having stewardship of the premises, particularly when the proposed solution to the problem would seem to be the problem. Obviously, in relation to designated premises supervisor and premises license holders, we have to place trust in those people to do the right thing. This applicant, the evidence has shown, has failed to do that, and I would suggest he cannot be trusted to have stewardship of premises in these circumstances. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Edge, you get the final word.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I think I'll just summarise very quickly, really, by saying that although Mr. Swallow mentions that the premises licence holder is also the DPS, this is not unusual and it's permitted within the Licensing Act. It may not be something that the police are always particularly happy about, but it doesn't mean there's anything wrong when the premises licence holder and DPS are the same person, particularly in, you know, a one-man band outfit where they can't afford necessarily to employ a manager as a DPS. Secondly, I'd say that the alleged offences, and I take the point that Mr. Swallow makes, but Section 182 guidance clearly states that evidence must be produced. So to say that there are alleged offences would really need to be backed up with a test purchase on children or CCTV evidence of the fact that those alleged offences took place. And finally, that Mr. Hossain again sincerely apologises and has tried to demonstrate that he realises how serious this is, which is why he surrendered the premises licence. And I did advise him that there's sometimes scepticism when someone surrenders a licence because they are able to transfer it within the 28-day snatchback window. But he states quite clearly that he has no intention of transferring the licence within that 28-day period. And finally, that there was no malice in what he'd done. He'd got confused by virtue of the fact that he held a premises licence and he'd received in the post his personal licence from the people he'd attended his course with, and wasn't aware that there then needed to be another application to add DPS to the premises licence. That summarises my piece, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edge, and thank you, Mr. Swallow, for your assistance today. So I'll now ask all parties to leave the MS Teams meeting, and the members, the committee lawyer and the committee manager will go into private session while the subcommittee makes its decision. You'll be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within 5 working days. So colleagues, brief comfort break in 5 minutes time. We'll meet in the private session. Thank you very much. That is the end of the public hearing.